Hello and welcome to this debut edition of the Storyteller's World on YouTube. My name is Doris, your host on this program. Right from time immemorial, stories have been used to pass down oral tradition from generation to generation. I remember the good stories that my parents were told by their parents, which have been passed to myself and my siblings. Stories enlighten, educate, encourage and entertain. Grab yourself a hot or cold drink depending on what the weather is like where you are, and let us form community together by bonding through stories. We have a page on Facebook called The Storyteller's World. You can catch up on some of the stories that we've told before now. And on Twitter it's called The Storyteller's World. Today our story is titled My Brother Joe. Come along on the story. Jacob had been in Padam Aram for 20 years, working for his uncle Laban. Laban was a very crafty and shrewd man who would try to cheat Jacob even out of his wages. He did this 10 times until God came in to fight for him. And God made Jacob extremely wealthy. Jacob married his uncle's 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel. He was also given 2 wives by the sisters, Bilhah and Zilpah, as they competed for children and Jacob's heart. Finally, when Rachel, his favorite, had a son she could call her own, Joseph, it was time to go back to their own home country. Rachel, Jacob's favorite wife, now had a son. Woo-hoo! The journey progressed with Leah and the servant wives and their children in front, while Jacob hid his 2 favorite people, Rachel and Joseph, at the back. If the group came under attack, these 2 would at least be safe. It had been a very tortuous journey, with a temporary settlement in Shechem and Bethel, and then finally they went to Canaan, where Isaac, Jacob's father, lived as a foreigner before. Rachel gave birth to Benjamin, but oh dear, she died in the process. So Joseph remained his father's favorite among all the children. Joseph was now 17. His character was fully formed. He was dutiful and often looked after his father's flock. Joseph was handsome, witty, and helpful, but he could not keep his mouth shut. He would boast about being his dad's favorite. He only went to work when his dad asked him to. Many a times, he would sit at Joseph's feet and learn tricks and wisdom. One day, Jacob came home from the merchant's market and called, "Joseph, Joe boy, Joe!" Joseph came running. "Yes, father, you called me." "Yes, my son." He handed over a bag to Joseph. Inside was a beautiful multicolored coat. It fit Joseph perfectly when he tried it on. Joseph began to swagger and whistle around the house, showing off to his brothers and winding them up. He let his little brother Benjamin have a go at putting it on, but he took it from him when he saw that Jacob was not really pleased. Zilpah cooked a lovely meal and set it before Joseph and Jacob. The meat was very tasty. He licked his lips. Joseph, you need to take this as well." He passed the rest of the meal to Joseph. His favorite son took it round the house, even though his father was saying in a loud whisper, hey, sit down here and eat." He gave a portion to Benjamin, who ran after him. The others watched in envy and resentment. Simeon said to Levi, "I hate that Joseph." Joseph looked back and said cheekily, "I heard that, Levi." Levi bellowed, "If you don't leave this place, I will wipe that smile off your silly face." Joseph stuck his tongue out as he escaped. The next morning, Joseph and his 10 big brothers went to tend the father's flock. Actually, Joseph stayed back. But his brothers always seemed to pick on him, so he was going backward and forward. They started playing games with the oxen, seeing who would break the legs of the oxen. Simeon and Levi broke 2 legs each. The others cheered, but Joseph challenged their wickedness. When they got home, Joseph reported the incident to his father, who was very angry with his sons, for that had not been the first time that they have been unjustifiably wicked. These two men had a fiery temper as well. They had killed all the men in Shechem, a place where the family was first thinking of settling, because Haman, who wanted to marry their sister Dinah, defiled her. Jacob had not yet gotten over this incident. He looked up to heaven as if to say, God, deliver me from these sons of mine. Jacob looked at Reuben disdainfully as if to say, you are the oldest, but you're just a waste of space. You never seem in control of anything. Reuben could tell what his father was thinking without him spelling it out. One night, Joseph had a dream. He went to his brothers while they were enjoying a meal and said, hey, guys, guess what? What? Responded Judah. Joseph cleared his throat and got ready to reenact his dream. He walked around the room to create some suspense. Dan said, come out with it and don't waste my time. Joseph took his time. He made sure that he had everyone's rapt attention. In my dream, I was out there in the fields, tying up bundles of wheat. Suddenly, my bundle stood up, and your bundles gathered around and bowed down to it. His brothers asked, do you really think that you will be king and rule over us? Now they hated Joseph even more. Joseph just wouldn't shut up though, even though he was kicked and given knocks on the head when his father was not there, of course, to come to his rescue. His brothers were chatting and having a laugh together one evening after a busy day in the fields. It was Joseph's day off, and he had gone with his father to the merchant's market to buy a matching shoe for his multicolored coat. He put on his coat and then his shoes. Then he began to talk to his brothers, rudely interrupting, oh yes, so I forgot to mention to you that I had another dream. Wait till you hear this one. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to me. Remember, right, that there's just 11 of you and just one of me, if you get my drift. His brothers were stunned and very jealous. Joseph walked off excitedly to tell Jacob, his father, the same dream. His father kept on wondering, what could be the meaning of this dream? He didn't mind too much though, since it would rather be Joseph than any of the others having such a dream. Jacob chuckled to himself, Rachel, Joseph's mom must be smiling in her grave. Time would tell. Yes, time would tell, he said. Joseph's brothers took the sheep and pastures round to Shechem. Jacob said to Joseph, go and see your brothers, see how they're doing, and bring back report to me again. The dutiful Joseph arose immediately to go and pay his brothers a courtesy call. He took some food along for them and searched for them where they were supposed to be. Joseph mumbled to himself, this is typical. They're supposed to be here, but no, they wander off to some other place. Now how do I begin to look for them? A man saw Joseph wandering around and asked, what are you looking for? He replied, oh, I'm looking for my brothers. Luckily, the man had overheard them saying, oh, we're going off to Dothan. When the brothers spotted him coming, they said to themselves, that is the dreamer. They made plans to kill him. No, let's not kill him. Let's throw him into a pit. They also said that would put an end to his silly dreams. When Reuben heard what they were saying, he said, oh, this makes me cringe. Please, don't kill him at all. Let's just put him in this pit we're talking about. There was a dry well in the desert. Reuben was thinking very hard of a strategy for rescuing Joseph and taking him back home to Daddy. Joseph's brothers stripped off his lovely coat and threw him into a dry pit in the desert. They laughed at him and made faces at him. They threw little stones down at him when he was crying. I'm begging them, please mercy on me. Okay, forgive me. They walked away. Joseph cried and cried and shouted, God help me. Daddy, where are you? But it seemed that God and Daddy were very far away. After a while, there were no more tears to be cried. The brothers temporarily forgot all about Joseph as they sat down to eat and chat. Reuben went to ensure that the sheep were all right for a while, so he left his other brothers. Meanwhile, there were sounds of galloping. Clippity-clop, clippity-clop, they heard. When they looked up and they saw a caravan approaching, Judah had an idea. If he didn't speak up quickly, this moment would be lost forever. Guys, I was just thinking, what would we actually gain if we kill our own brother, our own blood? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not harm him. The others bought the idea. They nodded in agreement. The caravan was quite close, so it had to be teamwork. If this plan was going to work, they quickly pulled him out of the well and presented him to the Ishmaelites, who gladly bought him for 20 pieces of silver. Joseph's cry and pleas fell on deaf ears. Reuben returned from his time out, looking after the sheep. He went to see how the pit was treating Joseph, but lo and behold, he had a rude shock. The lad was gone. When the others revealed the sordid details, Reuben tore his clothes and wept. Did you have to take it that far? He wailed. Simeon was getting irritated and he shouted, Reuben, you had better comport yourself. They had to plan another thing to cover up. They killed the goat and put the blood all over Joseph's beautiful coat. The father would be too concerned about his son to realize that a goat had gone missing. Life was never the same in Jacob's household. If the brothers had envisaged how much grief they would cause their father, they never would have bothered to sell Joseph. Jacob was inconsolable. He wouldn't talk about any other thing but his son, who had been cruelly snatched from him. Jacob mentioned Joseph's name more times a day than when he was alive. When he slept, Jacob shouted, Joseph, from his sleep. Some nights, he would sit up in the night, sniffing and smelling Joseph's clothes and holding them tight. Jacob, was he losing it? Memories were all that he had left. This was very frustrating for the brothers because they were constantly reminded of their sins, which unfortunately could not be confessed. Their father would disown them all if he knew what they had done to his precious son. Benjamin, his brother, was not a good replacement for him, but hey-ho, Jacob had to make do with him. Meanwhile, Joseph was taken down to Egypt. It was easy to find a buyer because, of course, Joseph was handsome, healthy, and he had good, toned muscles. Joseph resigned himself to his fate. His only consolation was that God was there with him, reassuring him. He received all the comfort from the Lord. When Joseph stopped feeling homesick, he became a great asset to his master Potiphar. Joseph had to learn quickly, for he had never been a slave before. He was a pampered son, remember? His suffering had begun to refine him. Joseph was no longer talkative. He became very disciplined and worked diligently, just as if he was working for God. Everything Joseph touched turned to gold. Potiphar's house became blessed, happy, and peaceful just because Joseph was there. Very soon, the master of the house did not bother with anything in his household. He put Joseph in charge of everything, and it ran smoothly. Mrs. Potiphar really liked Joseph too, but her liking was a naughty type. Usually when she went past, she would give Joseph a pat on the back, but recently she began to make Joseph feel really uncomfortable. The way she stood around him, admiring him, and sometimes pretending to be there. She pretended that there were cobwebs in his hair as she rubbed her fingers through his hair. Madam Potiphar had no respect for personal space. So Joseph decided to avoid her like a flea. One morning, she sent for Joseph. She was very blunt this time. "Joe, my dear, I have observed that you are avoiding me. Yesterday, I saw the way you hurried away when I was coming down the corridor. Don't you like me?" Joseph answered, "I like working for your household. Thank you very much for the opportunity, madam." Madam Potiphar answered, "Don't call me madam. That's not what I mean." She looked at him seductively and tossed her hair the opposite side. One of the other servants shouted from a distance for Joseph to come and attend to a serious matter. He made his excuses and escaped quickly. That night when he lay down to sleep, Joseph reminisced over the activities of the day. He groaned. He sighed, and he asked God, "Please deliver me from my master's wife." Joseph decided to spend the next few days overseeing Potiphar's workers in the field. When he went back briefly into the house to do some chores, it was as if Madam Potiphar was lying in wait. She cornered him as he put his master's laundry away. "Joseph, please, come and lie with me. You are handsome, and your energy levels makes me just imagine what pleasure you would give me. Don't waste your energy on silly household chores," she said. "I'll give the jobs to the other slaves, you know. Come on, Joseph. Don't make me feel like a cheap woman. Spare me the agony." Joseph said to her without looking into her eyes, "It's great wickedness against God. He's watching me. My master hasn't put you in my care, madam, and that's because you are his wife. Please don't do this to me." Madam Potiphar said, "Shh," and tried to go for Joseph, but he broke free once again. She felt humiliated and more determined to get Joseph at all costs. Madam Potiphar rolled in bed all night while her husband slept as soon as his head had hit the soft feathery pillows. Joseph had to sleep with his one eye open because he was afraid that loudness would pounce on him in the night. Almost the whole household could hear Potiphar snore. Potiphar called for Joseph the next morning, giving him a few instructions to carry out for the day. Joseph was not as bright as he usually was, and there were some bags that were visibly seen under his eyes because he did not sleep well. His master told him to pass the messages to the other slaves and find time to rest. Joseph thanked his caring master and went away to carry out a few more tasks. Madam Potiphar had also left the house quite early. Joseph saw her leave. When he came back, the house was quiet and there was no one about, so he decided to go to his room and chill out for an hour or two, as advised by his master. Madam Potiphar burst into his room unannounced. Before he knew what was happening, she was all over him. He jumped out of bed and headed towards the door. She ran after him. She had that covered as well. She caught him before he could escape and held to him tightly. Her voice was intense. Joseph, you must lie with me. And it's an executive order. I need you and I must have you. Now, don't you dare deny me. It's my right." She tried to put her lips to Joseph's lips, but he wriggled out of her grip. However, his coat was left behind as he fled. Madam Potiphar saw that Joseph was not going to budge. If she did not act fast, the whole country would hear that she tried to lure her slave into bed. Immediately she heard Potiphar's voice. Madam Potiphar began to shed crocodile tears. When he came into the bedroom, he rushed to her side to find out what was upsetting his beautiful and adorable wife. She showed him the evidence as she sobbed and explained the situation. Potiphar's bellow made the foundations of the house to shake. He went for Joseph and grabbed him by the throat and then by the clothes and threw him into prison, where Pharaoh's prisoners were kept. Now, I really need your help here. I want your comments I want your help. I'm confused. Do you think Potiphar's wife would be able to live with her conscience after telling bogus lies about Joseph? And what about Joseph's brothers on the other hand? Do you think they cared that they betrayed their own blood? Have you been betrayed before? Or have you betrayed somebody? Yes, I would love to hear your comments. Drop us a comment on YouTube. Let's know what you think about this story and the questions I've asked you. And if you want to send us an email, it's info@thestorytellersworld.co.uk. If you want to send us a text as well, the number is 074 534 57925. If you've enjoyed the story today, please share and subscribe. Till we come your way again, have a nice day.